Hello and welcome. This is Jonah Minkoff-Stern, Public Citizens Democracy is for People Campaign Co-Director. Thank you for joining us here. We'll hear today from three sets of speakers before you work locally to take action. First, you'll hear from people who will talk about how we can stand in solidarity with communities that are being targeted by the Trump administration. Next, you'll hear about how we can expose conflicts of interest and corruption of Donald Trump and build that message out into our communities. Finally, you'll hear about why and how we need to continue to maintain a positive message to demand democracy and work locally on a state and federal level to make changes for democracy. The first set of speakers will talk about how we can stand in solidarity with communities being targeted. And I want to emphasize that that's not separate from our movement for democracy, but that at our core, we need to understand, listen to, and build movements with people who are being targeted. That we need to create a nation that's of, for, and by the people, and that means that everyone participates and that everyone is safe in their communities. In that set, you'll hear from the Leaning Stamp Special Projects Director from Working Families Party about how we can build opposition to Trump's nominees. You'll hear from Carlos Rojas from Cosecha Sanctuary Movement about how we can build sanctuary movements and safe places in our community for immigrants. You'll hear from Tam Williams, the Women's March on Washington, Pennsylvania coordinator and Diversity Committee director, about how we can march and join a mass protest in Washington on January 21st. I also want to mention that we'll be planning teach-ins at All Souls Church on the late afternoon and evening following the march, so I hope you'll join us there. Next, you'll hear from Robert Weissman, President of Public Citizen, who will talk about how we can expose conflicts of interest and the broader corruption of the Trump administration. And finally, you'll hear from Scott Swenson, Vice President of Communications from Common Cause, about how and why we can demand democracy in working for voting rights and to get big money out of politics in our communities, in our states, and in the nation. And finally, you'll hear from Rio Tazwell from People for the American Way, who will summarize and talk about how we can work locally and begin organizing to take action. Thank you again for joining us here today. Together we will be a light in a time of challenge to our nation, and together we will work to build the nation into a better time.
We are facing a Republican-controlled government. We are facing a president-elect that has used fear and hatred throughout his entire campaign. We are facing his top chief strategist that has been an outwardly white nationalist. Our first fight is to stop the appointments of Jeff Sessions as Attorney General and Mike Pompeo as CIA Director. Jeff Sessions and Mike Pompeo have a history of hate. We know that the U.S. Senate has the ability to approve or reject all cabinet nominations. Every Tuesday, we're gonna go and visit our senators. We're gonna go and visit our representatives. And we're gonna say, resist Trump, resist hate, stand on the side of love. Because our communities cannot afford Jeff Sessions as Attorney General. Because our communities can't afford Mike Pompeo as CIA Director. Because our communities cannot afford a place of hate, a place of hopelessness, and a place where their country doesn't believe in them. We're gonna go and visit our senators. We're gonna go and visit our representatives, and we're gonna tell them to stop these cabinet picks. We wanna make sure that they hear our voices and not just give us lip service. We want them to give public statements denouncing these picks. Every Tuesday at 12:30, bring your family, bring your crew, bring your squad. We're gonna go and visit our senators. We're gonna go and visit our representatives and demand that they make a statement then and there to denounce these cabinet picks. We'll see you on Tuesdays. If you need more information, go to resisthere.org.
Hello, my name is Carlos Rojas and I'm a volunteer organizer with the Cosecha movement. I want to talk briefly about what Cosecha is and what is it that we are doing in Cosecha to protect the immigrant community with this coming Trump presidency. So Cosecha is a popular movement, and we're fighting to win permanent protection, dignity, and respect for all immigrants in the country. We believe that in order to achieve that, we need to leverage our community's consumer and labor power. So for us, 2017 is going to be a year where we're going to be having boycotts and strikes so that this country realizes that they depend on immigrant labor to sustain the economy of this nation. Right now, we have many initiatives to protect our community and to give them a sense of hope in the midst of a Trump presidency, and they're all around sanctuary, right? So we have campaigns in pushing colleges and universities to declare themselves sanctuary campuses. And we had a lot of success with that, engaging over 100 campuses across the country. We also have another campaign which is called Sanctuary Congregations, in which we're working with faith communities from across the country to declare their places of worship as a sanctuary place, a sanctuary congregation, to provide some protection for immigrants that are fearful of the increase in enforcement that we're likely to see starting in January. And then we also have Sanctuary Homes, which is a campaign for any ally that would like to provide shelter for undocumented immigrants who are in fear, open up their homes to provide a place where people can be without the threat of deportation. We're also, this week and next week, we're going to be pushing Democrats to take a stronger stance on immigration. A few weeks ago, we saw some of the most known Democrats on the immigration battle, like Luis Gutierrez, Zoe Lofgren, ask President Obama to issue a pardon for Dreamers, which are younger immigrants. But we really want to see the Democratic Party do a lot more, right? This country has an estimated 11 million undocumented immigrants, and this pardon would only support around 700,000 of those 11 million. So we don't want to see Democrats divide our community between those who are worthy of protection and those who aren't. We believe every family in this country, every undocumented person, every worker deserves the right to feel safe from the threat of deportation. If you want to be engaged in our work, we are having planning calls, we're having action calls for Sanctuary Campus efforts. If you're a college student, if you're a college professor, or if you have any relationship with a college campus, we also have the Sanctuary Congregations campaign. If you identify as a person of faith or a part of any congregation, no matter where you are, and if you're an ally that would like to open up their house as a safe space for undocumented immigrants, we have the Sanctuary Homes campaign. As you know, we're also a grassroots organization, and we're in need of any financial support that we can get to run the operations for our campaign. So we're going to put a donation link where you can donate. So thank you for your support. Thank you for your interest. We need you now more than ever. Goodbye.
Tonight, we are here very specifically to launch a special campaign. This campaign is called the Hate Free Zone, right here in Queens. A hate-free zone is when community members, like all of you, local businesses, faith institutions, elected officials, come together to publicly take a stand against hate, against marginalization, against criminalization, and against violence by individuals and institutions. Are you all committed to this hate-free zone? Yeah! I said, are you all committed to this hate-free zone? Yeah!
Hopefully this initiative will expand into other communities and more community members, including local businesses and local house of worships, libraries, will continue to join this effort and to create, a hate-free zone, and we can continue to build support and love for one another. And this is our defense system to keep our communities safe.
These are the people tonight, are the folks that are, willing to step up, willing to fight back, willing to fight back against rates that are probably going to be on the increase, against hate crimes. It's hard to imagine that in a neighborhood like this you'd ever see a hate crime against immigrants, because it's just such an immigrant neighborhood. But still, I think that outside of our neighborhoods, people feel like they have something to be afraid of. And so I think that just making this neighborhood as a whole a safe haven for immigrants is really important.
The current political climate has increased the uncertainty and fear in all of our communities. From threats of mass deportation to Muslim registries to forced internment, we have all been here before. All of our communities have been at the forefront of fighting for our existence and humanity, and it is no different today. Our communities are resilient, and that is why we are here today. All of our communities make what makes our city great. We will not let each other be targeted or separated by hateful policies and practices. We are all here united and pledged to love and protect each other and to declare our communities and neighborhoods as hate-free zones. A hate-free zone is not just a declaration, but the practice of building a community defense system that will allow us to defend our communities from workplace raids, deportations, mass criminalization, violence, and systemic violation of our rights and dignity. A hate-free zone does not happen without the people in this crowd, in this neighborhood, in this city. The times we are living in now demand we work as communities to love and protect each other. When our people are under attack, what do? Stand up, fight back. When our people are under attack, what do? Stand up, fight back.
Hi, I'm Tam, and I want to talk to you about the Women's March on Washington. Yes, the Women's March on Washington taking place on January 21st, 2017. It's the day after the inauguration of President-elect Donald J. Trump. What is the Women's March on Washington? Well, it's a grassroots effort. It's using the collective voices of women. We're coming together. We're marching on Washington to let them know, not only from the federal but the state and local levels, that human rights are women's rights. How can you get involved? Visit www.womensmarch.com, or you can go to Facebook and type in Women's March on Washington National. There you're going to find information like your state local pages. You'll find information on transportation, on lodging. However, the Women's March on Washington does not endorse or is not affiliated with any of the information that is posted on Facebook. Please check with your state coordinators for that. Now, we do have a diversity and inclusion page and a group getting very large that is associated with the Women's March on Washington. We would encourage you to check us out. Find information and definitely come together with like-minded women. It's all about diversity and inclusion, right? It's about using our collective voices. We need you. We need you in this grassroots effort. And we hope that you will be there, whether it is with us in person, in DC, at your state marches, because most of the states are having sister marches, or in spirit. Be sure and visit www.womensmarch.com. More information will be forthcoming about the specifics around timing, location where they're meeting, where they're marching to, and all of that other information. As you may be aware, when you have a march where you're talking about well over 100,000 women, it takes time. So that information is coming, but the march is definitely taking place. So again, womensmarch.com, and you can visit Facebook to get more information. Thanks, and we look forward to seeing you.
Hey everyone, this is Robert Weissman from Public Citizen. Thanks so much for joining us and getting together this evening for these important gatherings to figure out what we're going to do about the presidency of Donald Trump. We're only a month after the election, and a lot's uncertain, but we know a lot already, and it's really disturbing. Two things we know are we're looking at the most corrupt administration in American history and the wholesale government takeover of American government. Those are two frightening facts. But the evidence is really everywhere. It starts with what Trump is doing about his own personal holdings and his refusal to divest the holdings to avoid these pervasive conflicts of interest. So they're going to affect everything from tax policy to consumer protection, from bankruptcy law to worker rights, and even the conduct of foreign policy. Just down the street from the White House is the Trump International Hotel. We've got foreign diplomats telling the Washington Post, of course we're going to stay in Trump's hotel. We want to be able to tell them, your hotel is so great. They want to curry favor, and they're already announcing they're going to do it. President-elect Trump doesn't seem to care too much about that. And we're going to see not just those sort of small little things, but we're going to see policy being affected by not what's in the interest of Americans, but what's in the interest of the family business, which is just a horrifying thought. Even worse is how he's handing over the reins of government to corporate interests. We're seeing it in the transition team, which is made up of corporate lawyers and corporate executives and hacks from industry-backed think tanks. At the Defense Department, we found 6 of 10 people dealing with the transition for the Defense Department coming from military-industrial contractors. 2/3 of the people at the Justice Department work currently defending corporate criminals. A former Pepsi lobbyist is in charge of the transition of the Department of Agriculture. And that's not even talking about the cabinet appointees. The latest is this guy from the Department of Labor enforcing worker rights, worker laws, worker protections. His restaurants routinely in violation of worker protections. The head of the EPA, a guy who's suing the EPA to stop it from doing its job. It's really not like anything we've seen in American history. The point, of course, of these meetings is to figure out what we're going to do about it. And I think if we focus on these themes of corruption, both Trump's personal corruption and the corruption of our government, we've got an opportunity to mobilize lots of people, but also crucially to break Trump voters away from President Trump, because there's a big difference between what candidate Trump promised and what President-elect Trump and President Trump are going to deliver. So all kinds of ways we're going to be able to do that, but a lot of it's going to come from your creativity. We're going to have legislation soon that's going to speak to these issues about revolving door and also the issues of Trump's personal holdings. We can have demonstrations all over the place at Trump's holdings, at federal buildings. I think we're going to have a lot of opportunities to push this forward, but we're really in unprecedented territory, and a lot of the ideas and the best ideas are going to come from creative organizers, activists like you. So we're looking forward to carrying on the conversation and learning what you have and seeing what great ideas you come up with. We're in for some really big challenges ahead. The only thing that's going to help us, that's going to protect the values we cherish most, is all coming together, organizing together, and making a difference together.
I'm Scott Swenson. I'm the Vice President of Communications for Common Cause. The 2016 election was an enormous success for the democracy reform movement. We have the right strategies, the right solutions, the right people, and most importantly, we have the right values that are bringing people together. Our set of issues, the democracy reform movement, is the only issue set right now that is bringing left, right, and center together. If we look at the election, there were many reasons why a divided nation was divided. But in the places where there was a democracy reform ballot initiative, we saw people come together to support that, left, right, and center. We ended up winning, I think, 14 out of 16 races that we were watching around the country on election night. We had more presidential candidates talking about democracy reform issues. We had more congressional candidates and legislative candidates at the state level talking about these issues. And most importantly, we had them talking about them from the same framework that we talk about them, from a values principled framework. We bring people together around the core values of democracy reform and the principles behind the policies that we support. We are working to build a democracy that is more inclusive, more collaborative, more empathetic, and that works for all of us in the 21st century. And those strategies and that movement emerged in 2016 in ways that we probably couldn't imagine that it would successfully just a year ago. And so as we approach an administration that is going to give us more possible distractions than we could even imagine, I'm here to say that the best way forward, the best path forward at the local, state, and even at the national level for all of us is to remember that we're on the right path. We have the right issues, we have the right solutions, and while it will appear, I think, over the next couple of years as though everything we know to be true about our democracy is collapsing around us, that what we are doing is putting in place the democracy that will emerge from that ruin. And I don't say that lightly, and I don't say that cavalierly. It is a difficult place to be, to know that we are going to be in a difficult environment for the next few years, that there will be real harms caused to people by this administration and the direction that they will take the country. And certainly we are going to have to fight back on those on some levels. But for us to abandon or to be distracted from what was a winning strategy, what was the emergence of a national movement to build a new democracy that works for all of us in the 21st century, for us to abandon that and set it aside now would be an enormous mistake, and actually would be perhaps the worst thing that we could do for our democracy, because what we know for a fact is that the things that are going to come out of this administration that aren't good are going to contribute to the decay and collapse of the things that are familiar to most people. And so what we have to be doing is to continue to push people towards the solutions that are working around the country, and get more candidates at the local and state level to embrace this agenda, to pick it up actively, and to move it forward. We have to double down on our ability to pass these sorts of reforms at the city and state level. We've got to raise those resources. We need funders to double down on their efforts. This is important beyond measure in this particular moment. There will be plenty of opportunities for us, as I said, to be distracted by this administration. There will be plenty of opportunities for us to fight this administration on some of these issues. But what is most important is that we remember the success that we had in 2016, and that we continue to build on that success. That we know we are on the right path. We have the right people, the right strategies, the right policies, and the right leadership in place to make this happen.
Hey everyone, now that we've heard a little bit about the things that we can do to push back against Trump and his agenda, it's almost time for you all to start talking amongst yourselves and planning for what you're going to do in your own community. But before that, I want to give a brief overview of what we talked about in this video. First, we need to stand in solidarity and show that the American people do not support the policies put forward by Donald Trump or the nominees he's putting forward to fill his cabinet. So, how can we do that? Well, we can meet with our members of Congress, either here in Washington, D.C. or in the states. We can also call and write and urge them to oppose the nominees put forward by Donald Trump to fill his cabinet. We can also organize our friends to do the same thing. Truly, power in numbers. We can even organize a press event or a rally to help get the message across. We can also work to make our campus, community, or congregation a sanctuary for immigrants. Sometimes this might mean getting past the threat of the withholding of federal funds. We might need to even work to prevent the creation of a national Muslim registry. Another thing that we can do is join the Million Woman March happening here in Washington, D.C. on January 21st, the day after inauguration. In addition to the march, there's also going to be teach-ins and workshops happening at All Souls Unitarian Universalist Church that afternoon, talking about other ways that we can continue to get active in our own communities after the march. Make sure to contact Nalini Stamp at Working Families Party, Carlos Rojas at Cosecha, and Tam Williams at Million Woman March about more information for how to get involved with these activities. Next, we need to expose corruption. So how do we do that? First, we can encourage our lawmakers, our elected members of Congress, to support the legislation that's about to be introduced that calls on Donald Trump to divest of his business interests and to disclose the extent of his business holdings so that we can be sure that he's doing everything he can to address his massive conflicts of interest. We can do that by calling our members of Congress, writing them emails, and urging them in person. We can also, again, encourage our friends to do the same thing. We can even organize rallies or even a press event to help strengthen the message. We can also spread information about the conflicts of interest presented by a Trump administration by sharing the great digital content that's being created by many organizations working in this space. For more information about conflicts of interest, you can contact Jonah at Public Citizen. Finally, we must demand democracy. We need to work to pass reforms on the local and state level that can protect the integrity of our political process. We're going to be sharing more information in the coming months about how to move forward with passing these types of reforms on the local and state level. In the meantime, I hope you have a great and productive meeting.